What would our lives look like if we actually every single time just went ahead and said, oh, I'm going to stand up and ask the question to the big speaker? The amount of times in my life where I haven't actually pursued the action sits with me. The embodiment of being led by faith, knowing when you are being called into something and actually taking action on it, that's where I want to live. I want to live in that moment.
Brother.
My man.
Happy Monday.
Dude, we're back at it.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Getting in the rhythm of doing these Monday pods.
I love it. Dude, it's amazing. I feel like I didn't even see you much this weekend outside of church.
Just want ghost mode.
You need ghost mode every once in a while.
Dude, I thrive on ghost mode.
How was the weekend for you?
Dude, it was good. Honestly, pretty low key. Just like, I think trying to slow down a little bit more on the weekends and just like allowing that to be sort of a part of the creative process.
Totally.
Is huge.
Just keeping it blocked off just for personal time and fill yourself up with the things that are going to make you feel really good heading into the week.
Yeah, just like clean, cook some good food. I've been trying to be more intentional, like Sunday mornings, just like getting a coffee with people. So just having that blocked off for going out and like getting a coffee and having some deep conversation, which I think is also important. Just like spending one-on-one time with people that I'm not usually spending one-on-one time with. It's been good.
By coffee, you mean the Holy Cow smoothie from Sun Life Organics?
Oh, dude, how good is it?
Dude, 50 grams of protein.
It's been fun just seeing that pop up on the menu. When was the first time you had it? When we went and did the shoot?
I did it the week before we did that shoot to launch it, just to like do some of the R&D stuff on it. And they had a peanut butter flavor of it and an almond butter flavor. I just love peanut butter, so I'm like, you can't go wrong with you couldn't go. They both tasted great.
Give the backstory on Sun Life and just how important it's been for Noble, just that relationship and us now officially having a smoothie live there.
Oh yeah, so Sun Life Organics is this unbelievable high-end organic smoothie shop. There's 17 locations around the country. There's
such a sucker for their bowls.
We've probably spent $5,000 a piece over the last 2 years, and some of the best $5,000 we've ever spent.
100%.
And we were fortunate. We had Khalil Rafati, their founder, on the podcast. We had him on about a year ago.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first, to my knowledge, when we first moved to Austin 3 years ago, that was like the first brick and mortar store I remember going to in Austin.
100%.
And when you go to a Sun Life, they pick like the best locations. The vibe is just like impeccably curated and cultivated. And it just makes you feel good when you're in there, let alone the smoothies are absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
And we met him at an event last year, like quickly became friends with him. He believed in the vision with Noble, was like probably investor number 3, and has just like gone above and beyond to just help us grow the brand, be a friend, be a mentor, give us tough advice when you need tough advice. And they've been so supportive that they actually launched a smoothie collab where you can get the Holy Cow smoothie with our Noble protein powder in it, which is pretty special.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool walking in there and seeing the Noble bags. Yeah, I feel like living in awe is such a powerful thing. Just being amazed by stories and just how we've gotten where we are. And Sun Life for me is like a perfect example of me being just in awe of how many relationships and conversations that I've had inside that place and outside that place that have been meaningful. Like when I got down here, that's where I met up with Justin Maris, who for some miraculous reason I got connected to, was applying to work with him, was potentially going to partner with him. It's just like this, that was like a huge veil that was like lifted for me creatively, which was just like having this conversation with Justin when I was still working in my corporate job that eventually led to me quitting, which eventually led to me getting more entrepreneurial and trying to make things happen for myself. And like, I think about Sun Life, that's where I met up with him for the first time. That's where we had our first investor talks with Khalil, and just like so many good things have happened at that location. So I just live in awe because I'm like, this place is just kind of the center of everything for us.
Yeah, I think I feel like the goal number 1 is if you can become a person that creates serendipity for other people, that's really powerful. And goal number 2 would be to just, if you're not that person yet or you want to become that person, go to places where serendipity will like just naturally occur right in front of you. And those tables out front of Sun Life South Congress are the perfect example of that. Like, we've met investors there, made great friends there, had some just incredible memories and conversations. And I feel like that's 100% what that place is to both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like us having been doing the podcast for a while recently starting to build out a studio for ourselves and having these conversations around how important the actual spaces that you record in has opened my eyes to like how cool the space is that Sun Life is, like how it just naturally facilitates these relationships. And it's in such a unique part of Austin. It literally feels like the center of Austin. And I feel like the environment that they've created, like a good podcast studio, can just like create amazing conversation.
Yeah, there's so many conversations that we've either been a part of or have been lucky to listen into where it's like, should have just had 2 microphones there because it would have been a banger podcast, just like life advice.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like some of those conversations with Gina, who's opening the Den in Austin, which is going to be a wellness center, just like him speaking to us. And I feel like, I don't know, I just particularly remember him like getting us really excited and encouraged about what we were doing with Noble and the podcast. Yeah. And even Jay and Steph, like the way that they got excited about the product and us and just like the things that we were doing. It's just, I don't know, there's something about that place that just is like vibrant.
Yeah.
Super positive.
Vibrant is the perfect way to describe it. We were talking in the car ride over here. We don't have much of a script for this episode, which I think is cool, honestly.
Yeah,
just
pumped.
like organic conversations, cool way for us to catch up, share thoughts and learnings with the listener. But we were talking about our excitement around the episode that we're going to record over the next couple weeks, just what you, the listener, should know in context of the food system with the election coming up. Because I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. I think there's a lot of morsels of information that people don't know that they should know. So we're excited to dig into that. But I've just been having some just kind of like general reflections on the state of the U.S. in general and just like the super heightened climates. And we had a pretty good discussion about this at dinner at Nick's place, our buddy Nick's place the other night. And I'm curious, when you just kind of look at the overall state of affairs of the U.S., is there any like hidden alpha that you think about that maybe a lot of people aren't focusing on, that you're focusing on, that you feel like is maybe responsible for just the state that we're currently in right now?
I feel like the truth stands on its own, but a lot of times it's really hard to find the truth in a sea of a lot of noise.
Yeah.
So the way I see that playing out in everyday life is just having really good relationships. So when I think about the future of like the podcast and our business with Noble and our business with Growth Mafia, like we're entrepreneurs. We have a stake in the future of what's happening in this country and in the state of Texas. Just like, what can we create that will provide for our families in the future through these businesses that we're creating? And I think the business climate has gotten really hard for a lot of people. But one of the things that I've kind of realized and maybe gotten, I don't want it to feel like a false sense of comfort, but like I think our relationships that we have are truly special. And it's not something to rest on, but I do feel like through challenging times, those relationships will be not just something where we're like able to withstand the hard times from like a financial perspective and a business perspective, but like truly have people to lean on as we're going through different phases of growth. So I just think, yeah, kind of like peeling back the political nature of like what's happening in the world. I just think the importance of local relationships is incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's so well said. And when you're speaking, I'm thinking about like just the ways that I think myself, both of us are just like mentally preparing, like number one, the security blanket of like having God in a relationship in Christ and just knowing that it's his will and whatever's going to happen will happen and we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Number two, like having those amazing relationships to go to, and that support system is massive. And then number three, from like just the general like business commerce perspective, I always go back to, I forget the book that it was in, but it basically was talking about this particular topic, and it made a list of all these amazing companies over the last 100 years. And so many of them, like 80% of them were started in periods of recession or even depression too. So it's like, regardless, there is only so much control that we can have. But if you're a founder or entrepreneur, you work for another company, like great businesses are constantly born regardless of the circumstance that we're currently facing.
Totally. Yeah, I think from like using like a sports analogy, it's like, you know, these difficult times are basically like the, you know, peak, like it's like making it to the major leagues. Like it's the most challenging performance that you'll have to put on. So when times do get easier and things do get better, you're ready to pounce. I think a lot of it is just spirit driven. I think that's like, you hear people say like the entrepreneurial spirit. The spirit is very important to like having success in business. I think it's so easy to get down on yourself. I know I've been there and you've been there too, where it's just like, man, stuff just isn't going our way, or it's so like easy to kind of play the victim. But I think one of the gifts that you and I both have is just the gift of perspective and perseverance. It's kind of like how the show started, was us doing the Ironman together, and just that gift of endurance and being able to grit through stuff. So it kind of excites me, honestly, I would never wish for like hard times or bad times, but I mean, I don't think hard times are bad times. I think hard times make us who we're destined to be.
Yeah, I mean, the hardness of COVID really opened people's eyes to truth, and our show wouldn't exist as a result of COVID. All these businesses, all these people that created brands on social media, that's born out of the result of a hard time, like you're talking about. There's like a lot of beauty and like this unseen gold that comes as a result of those things too. So it's like, maybe you should look at it as like the hardness will produce those good times that you're talking about.
Totally. I also, this morning I was just oscillating between like feeling, I was getting this urge to like, I didn't get my workout in this morning. So I was like mentally a little caged up, and I just had this like fire where I just kept thinking about the word trailblazer and this idea that like we need more of that like pioneering spirit, like people who literally just want to like go into the jungle and blaze a trail. And I don't know, just thinking about that idea and trying to like visualize that and contextualize that in our own way. It's like, how many people can be impacted by this conversation alone, where we look back and it's like, oh man, people actually got inspiration from this to the point where they started taking action in their own life and doing things in a different way, in accordance with a different paradigm, a different set of beliefs than they did before they listened to this conversation. So I was thinking about that idea, like trailblazer. And I feel like that relates to both of our like energy and how we try to put ourselves out there. It's like, we know that we're going to like take some shots and get kicked in the teeth every now and then, but like we want to be the guys who are like hacking down the first tree to blaze a new path.
When you close your eyes and think about the word
close your mind
it's closed
day.
Right?
Yes, I do. It's already closed.
When you think about the word trailblazer, if your eyes are closed, like what kind of comes to mind? Like what were the visuals in your head that you were coming back to, or what was hitting you?
It was more so like personifying it. So thinking about like Teddy Roosevelt and the Churchills and the explorers over to America, the Amerigo Vespucci's and the Christopher Columbuses, just people who were legitimately faced with life and death risk.
Yeah.
And I've gotten like, I just think that's where we're supposed to live. Like we're supposed to live with that feeling a little bit more than I think we're used to. And I think that hard times obviously bring more people into that field of feeling like there's some like level of, hey, I actually need to survive out here to make this thing work. I know it's challenging times for a lot of people, and we've got each other to lean on, but I get that feeling that like we should be living in that little area of life where you're supposed to just kind of like have your back against the wall.
Yeah. We were talking about this last week. I mean, I don't think it's possible for you to have asymmetric reward without asymmetric risk. And it's not like fetishizing the concept of just taking risk just to take risk, but
no.
I think you make such a good point. Like you think the gravitas of the situations behind what someone like a Teddy Roosevelt was dealing with, like losing his mom and his mom and his wife on the same exact day, and isolating himself out in the frontier and just exploring and hunting bison and getting his mind right, and then being one of the youngest presidents ever. And Winston Churchill literally dealing with like the weight of the world literally on his shoulders of like good versus evil, and all these men that you look up to, and it's like you look up to them directly in proportion to the weight that they bared and the way that they were able to overcome that and achieve that like maximum potential, or whatever the word is that you want to use to describe it. It's super interesting.
100%. And I think to the best of our ability, like, though, I think trying to navigate the world with full faith that there are powers of good and evil, and that we can pull into this conversation right now, like the strength of people like Churchill and Roosevelt, and just like there's importance to everything that we're doing. And I think if you're not feeling that, if you feel like the stuff you're doing isn't important, you should stop doing it. And start doing stuff that feels important. Because like when we sit down to hit record, I feel like we're doing something important. When we are working on Noble, I feel like we're doing something important. When we're working on Growth Mafia stuff, I feel like we're doing stuff that's important. And that allows me to like feel like none of it's like pretend. It's like, let's get after it. Let's go. Let's kind of move this thing forward. And I just feel like, I've been through periods of my life where that wasn't real, and you can't fake that.
Yeah, it's really easy to like romanticize the exit and like the selective bias around just some of the pain and the struggles to achieve that exit, for sure. Like we've had a number of founders on that have sold brands for incredible multiples, that have put their heart and soul into it. And how many times have we heard about them? Like the bank account was basically at zero. They didn't know how they were going to pay rent, remortgaging the house. Like you almost forget about that, like that risk that they took, which got them that exit. And at our friend Nick's dinner, Nick was talking about the fact that he was just conceptualizing the actual signing of the Declaration of the Independence and how many men that signed that. We're both 30. A lot of the men that signed that were younger than us. And like, you hear about it and it's like this incredibly patriotic, romantic thing. But you think about the actual weight that was associated with that decision of creating that document, creating this experiment known as the United States, and like what the stakes were if they ended up losing the Revolutionary War. It's actually wild to think about.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Where do you think you would have been back then? Like, do you think you would have been in, like, had the courage to be in a room like that?
I that's probably one of the things that I pray the most about is like, I try to not pray for, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I just noticed when I was younger, I would pray for more like things, not material things, but I guess some material things, but things in my life to go well. And I find that recently outside of praying for other people, just praying for certain characteristics that I deem to be worthy of a godly man. And I think courage is probably one of the biggest themes that sticks out in terms of my prayers. So I pray that had I been faced with that situation, that I would be one of those men that like boldly would sign a document like that. But I just don't want to armchair quarterback and be like, oh, that would have definitively been me.
Yeah. Do you feel like your definition of success has changed through kind of going after what we're going after and just build the things that we're building?
We talked about this a little bit in one of our solo podcasts, but when I turned 30, I think I was still married to this like old definition that I had around like what I was hoping to achieve by the time I was 30. And it was like metrics around money or maybe things that would be deemed nice and successful by society. But what I've rested my head on is that success to me is just it's a feeling. Like it's a feeling of within those 24 hours that I had, or however many hours that I had awake, that the closest version to 100% of Brett was materialized within that day. And it's nothing material. I'm just trusting and I have faith in the fact that if I can unlock 100% of Brett or 100% of Harry, that score is going to ultimately take care of itself materially, financially, your ability to provide for your family. I really just, I think it's almost like a law of nature that God has created where it's like, oh, the outcome doesn't matter, just trust in the process. But I think that if you have that mindset in a bizarre way, the result will be really fruitful to you too.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. I felt that way in sports a lot. I think there's just amazing power in visualization and really just seeing the outcomes, trying to see the outcomes before they happen. But you also need to, sports that I like, baseball, golf, those are kind of the two that come to mind. The harder you try doesn't necessarily make the outcome any better. Yes. Like for football, like maybe it's like hit the guy harder, like whatever. But for golf, if you're just sitting there and there's so much mental mastery that goes into the game that if you're thinking about playing harder, odds are you're going to have worse outcomes.
Yeah.
So you really do need to sit in this place of, I've done the work. The work was done before I even got on the course. Now it's time to just like let that fullness of that preparation come through. And how do I do that? It's not trying to overly engineer an outcome. It's every single shot's a new one, and let me just step up to this ball and try to like basically get your thoughts to neutral and zero. So I think about that in the context of life. And it's like, well, yeah, golf is very much like the game of life.
Yeah.
You know, there's times where you hit the ball, stripe it down the middle of the fairway, and then your next shot, you know, you would have prayed the last hole that you hit it on the fairway and you hit it in the rough, and then from the rough you went on the green, but then the next hole you're in the fairway and you hit it into the bunker. And it's like, it's this game of every shot is, you know, indicative of just like what you did previously. You just need to approach each shot as if it were brand new. Yeah,
it's funny, all these metaphors that come from things like doing sports and just other activities, and you forget the fact that like, no, the same principles that made you successful on those particular shots of that day golf actually apply to your business or whatever venture you're pursuing in life too. It's weird how we think these things are mutually exclusive when they're way more intertwined than we realize.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, do you feel this way, that like sports has massively amplified your capacity as an entrepreneur to just like to go after things and pursue things in ways that, you know, maybe if you didn't play sports,
100%.
Like how well equipped would you be to be an entrepreneur if you didn't play sports?
I don't think I would be very well equipped at all. And I also noticed that I think some of the same things that maybe mentally plagued me a little bit playing baseball still also plague me too, which is what I'm working through with Chris, that coach that I've been working with.
That's an interesting thread to pull on.
Yeah, which is really cool. It's doing something on your own, where I just think the feeling, like sometimes when we go into the office, like I almost view the office or our team as like the embodiment of this force of will from 3 years ago. And I just think about this concept of like, when you have something that's your own, or with your partner, whatever, your own thing, if you don't do work, nothing gets done. And if you do work, that's like the engine that moves everything forward.
Totally.
And I know it sounds so simple, but when you come from just like a traditional background where the wheel is just going to keep moving and you're just a small cog in that wheel, it's such a unique mental model to have.
Yeah. I had we had a mutual buddy once who was dealing with some stuff. He was going through a hard time, and I was giving this analogy. I didn't really know at the time, but it's actually like I don't know the name of it, but it's like a Greek story, some mythological story of a guy pushing the boulder up the hill.
Oh, Sisyphus.
Sisyphus. And so I was just giving him that analogy, like that's us on a daily basis. But when you're in a job that doesn't require you to be pushing boulders up the hill, you can coast. And so I think about that a lot. It's like when I was explaining it to our mutual friend, I was just like, dude, like if you want to make progress in anything, you've got to just like, you know, push that boulder up the hill.
Yeah.
Just like, it's not going to move if you don't do anything.
And there's ways that you can almost like self-manufacture that Sisyphean will, or whatever you want to call it, where like, I think Sisyphean, I don't know if that, I'm going to just say it's a word.
sounded sharp. We need shirts that just say Sisyphean.
Shout out Noah Huseman for that.
Yeah, Huseman just sitting there loving it.
I think that like a good example of manufacturing that is even like the Chad challenge is probably a great example of that for you, where it's like it doesn't matter what job that you're doing. It's like you do 1,000 steps and then you go to bed, and then the step count resets to 0, and then you're pushing the boulder back up the hill the next day. Like that's a really cool way to like manufacture that momentum and keep you sharp too.
Yeah, it's actually a good point, because I've really felt it like during different periods of the challenge. Like recently it's been getting a little bit harder, and it's all just in my head. It's just in my head though. I think like I've kind of let more mental friction take root. So I'm trying to just figure out ways to kind of like loosen it up and maybe make it a little bit easier mentally.
Yeah.
Which has been fun. I think that's like part of the challenge is showing up every day and giving myself that metric where I can come back to and just be like, all right, like this is the same 20-inch box that I'm stepping up on, but it's 100 times harder today.
Yeah.
get after it. Good luck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Do you think it's harder just purely in terms of like the physical accumulation on your legs of doing it 90 days, or is it more of just like, hey, I wish more people were doing this, or like, what do you think is more challenging for you?
It's a little, I would say much less the second. It's much more like physical and mental, like just literally stepping up on the box 1,000 times a day. It's like, you know, the lack of variety, I think, is probably the biggest thing. You know, I love variety in the gym, doing different workouts and stuff like that. And I've been sprinkling that in, but the bulk of my workouts for the last 3 months have just been stepping up on a box.
But there's a lot of learnings that have come from that too, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm excited because I think that, you know, I kind of want to put a deadline on it. I don't want to just go until 1,000. Like I'm going to say I either like get the goal or don't get the goal. Like put a time limit on it. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to just try to get as many people to do the step ups before I get to 100. So I basically have 2 more weeks of this. And I'm just going to push it as hard as I can, try to get groups together for the next 2 weeks where I get as close to 1,000 as possible. So if you're listening, go check out my Instagram, because I'm going to be pushing my Instagram's @MeMafiaHarry, but I'm going to be pushing it as hard as I can, just trying to get as many people to do the chat as possible.
I think that if you basically more publicly said what you just said like 5 minutes ago around Sisyphus and why you're doing the challenge, I feel like people would really gravitate to it, because I feel like with the chat, it was one of those things where I feel like you just felt compelled to do it and started doing it on your own before you started the challenge and felt amazing. And I feel like if people understood the bigger purpose of what you're talking about, it would be like, oh, I have to do this.
Yeah. I'll start. I feel like I haven't really sold it too much. I'm going to try to sell it these next few days.
You're a good salesman too.
We'll see.
I think creating those restraints is huge too.
It's to me, it's like prove that you can get to 1,000 for 100 would be really, before me doing 100 would be really cool. And if I don't do it, shit, like didn't work, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't reach the goal that I wanted to, and that's totally fine. Reassess, you know, maybe do another 100-day challenge with a Chad or like some other workout and just try to get 1,000 people to do that. I think, but I'm running with where my brain has gone is I get really excited about the idea of challenging other people to reach a new level. And so I think that my whole channel is going to start to exist around that, just challenging people.
Yeah.
Because I love that.
It definitely, the things that get you fired up are what you should be doing a lot more of too.
Yeah.
But I do think you make a really good point about constraints, because I guarantee you that within the next 2 weeks, you'll get way more people to do the challenge than ever before.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like,
maybe I'll get you to do it.
I got to do it.
We got to get Ned to make a clip of that. Your face just being like, oh.
Well, you called me out, so I have to do it now.
We need you.
No.
We need you on Team Step.
I need it bad. But constraints are interesting. Sometimes I just wonder, like, when you hear these people be like, oh, you could, you know, double your income or lift like double the amount of weight or whatever, there's this immediate reaction of like, that's not true. That's not possible. And sometimes I wonder, like, has this almost like slowness or these constraints been like strategically programmed into society? Because I do feel like God has made us to just be so powerful. Like, the reservoir of potential that we all sit on is so crazy. And there have been these crazy things where you're like, hey, I have to bring in this amount of money by this date, otherwise the company is going under. And then you miraculously pull it off. I'm like, I feel like that feeling is always possible and those things are always possible. But a lot of times we need a constraint to do it. So I don't know, have you ever thought about that, like slowness, like the way that it's just baked into society?
100%.
Yeah.
Like, if there was a car that was gonna like fall on your family, and you had to like leg press it off your family, I would give you a shot to do that.
Yeah.
At least a better shot than you leg pressing the same weight in the gym. The point of that is, like, if you raise the stakes, I think you as a person break some of those mental barriers and allow for like extraordinary things to happen in the moment.
Yeah.
I think like there's so many things that have just been programmed into the way that we think.
Yeah.
That I'm much more convicted around the idea of being led by faith instead of led by thoughts that are just baked into kind of like what we're what we're taught to believe.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, to what you're saying. I think back to there's like that famous clip that went really viral on Instagram of Tucker Carlson saying how a man will not actualize his true potential in many different ways until he becomes a father. And sometimes I wonder, like, I think there's just a fundamental degree of truthness to that statement, but I wonder, like, is there a way before you become a dad, can you get close to, like, at least close to that version of yourself, or is there something that just changes?
I think there's just something biological
that changes, like your just ability to, your need to provide for your family.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
Yeah.
But we'll check back in a few years.
Your grandpa would have been a really cool guy to ask about that.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think about like people who weren't given a pot to piss in.
Yeah.
And they just, they had kids and they realized that they needed to be more than what they currently were, and they stepped up to the occasion. If people aren't given the platform to rise to the occasion, like no stress, no pressure to do the things that they need to do. I think that's a lot of like the middle portion of America these days is kind of living in that place of, well, have enough.
Yeah.
Got food, got enough. So, life's pretty comfortable. But you can live an extraordinary life if you can tap into that. I hate the word primal, but it's like that biological feeling of just, hey, it's fight or flight, man. Get out there and make something happen.
Yeah.
I also want to provide, like when I think about my life, I want to provide beyond just the means that, like I want to be able to give someone something that they never thought, like give someone a gift where they're like, why would you do that? Like, why are you doing that? Why are you helping this person in this way? Type of thing. Like stun someone with generosity. Like I want to get to the point of financial freedom where I'm like, I don't want a massive house. I don't want really nice things. I want to be able to be insanely generous with time and just the ways that I can like give to people.
What was that term you used? Something generosity? It was a really good term.
Totally lost.
We'll have to look back. It was a great term.
Gotta go.
That was a swift burst of inspiration right there too.
Gone. Yeah.
I think that's such a cool goal though. And I think you have to attach yourself to those dreams and visions when shit starts to get really hard, when you're like, there's 15 things that I don't want to do today. Like we talked about this one of our last solo episodes of like these motivational focal points, and sometimes the carrot, sometimes it's the stick, and both can be really impactful to you. But like remembering like, why do I want to achieve this goal? Oh, it's for X, Y, and Z things. And like writing that on a note card or your phone, or making it readily available and baking that into your brain when you don't want to do the stuff that you're doing, that like me not doing this work is actually preventing me from being able to surprise a family member or friend with like stunning generosity.
I need to get better at writing it down. I want to, maybe next pod we record, I'm going to have written down the things that I want to be stunningly generous with. Cause I have a few in my mind that are immediately there, but it's just like being able to do things that like provide for my parents in a way where it's like, dude, you didn't have to do that. Or just friends who I know might need extra generosity. Like I think that extra generosity is where people start to like, people see God in the giving nature of like, dude, you did what? You helped that person out in that way? Wow. So I think it's like special being able to do that.
It really is. And having that like really honest accountability too, of like, I say that I want these things. Do I really feel like the actions that I'm taking will back that goal up to turn it into existence? Or is it more of just a dream? Like that's something that's been top of mind a lot. Yeah.
I feel like during different seasons, I'm definitely like, kind of like let my feet touch the grass. Like, am I being too dreamy right now? But I think the more you can live in that, like touch the clouds, dream a little bit, and then come back down and be like, okay, like gotta work, gotta do like all the right things. But you do need the vision. You need the vision to like see what's possible.
Yeah. And you need the action and the body of work. Yeah, it's like the perfect blend of those two things too.
Totally.
But it's like vision and dreaming is huge. Like I don't think enough people have taken a blank piece of paper and actually written out the things that they want in life. Like, how do you want to spend a day? Where do you want to live? Do you want to split time between Austin, Texas and San Diego? Do you want to have 6 kids? Do you want to have 2 kids? What do you want your wife to look like? Who do you want to look like? What do you want to do for work? How do you want to spend your time? I don't think enough of us spend time doing that. And then you just kind of get pushed what society deems you should be doing. And then you're not happy, but you never took the first step in the beginning. So obviously you just ended up living out someone else's dream.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of prayer, honestly. Just God doesn't want you to pray these vague, give me strength. Okay. He wants you to say exactly what you want.
Yeah.
What is it exactly that you want? You want, the house on the corner that overlooks the ocean. Ask for it. It's like no shame in asking for it. Like, just be as specific as possible in those prayers when you're asking for the things that you desire. I think our hearts can get closed off to big things just based on how the world kind of teaches us to think a little bit smaller. And I think prayer time for me recently has been trying to just like, don't feel greedy in asking for things that are amazing, or things that are, maybe big. I don't think it's a bad thing.
So you'd say your prayer styles changed last year, where you're like, there's a higher degree of specificity in terms of the things that you're praying to God about?
It's not perfect, but I try to be as mindful of that as possible. Like, sometimes I'll pray out loud and I'm like, man, that was pretty vague. Like, it didn't really drive. It wasn't like steered towards something specific, And I think as specific as you can possibly get is kind of how God like puts that hook in the mouth of like the goal, where it's like, I can actually get that for you because you said the exact thing that you're going for.
Yeah. I think even you recognizing that's amazing though, right? Where you're like, hey, maybe I could have been more specific with this, but the important thing is, number one, you said it out loud, and then number two, you were aware of it too, so you can make those improvements for the next time you do that too.
Yeah, 100%. But I think even outside the context of prayer, like you did a great job of just talking about like getting really detailed in what you want in life. Like, that you can have whatever belief system you want in that context. Like, but what is it? Like, paint the picture, have the vision for your future defined in a way that's like, okay, like I want these things, and take incremental steps to get there.
Yeah.
I think now is like this an insane time to live in, where if you can be focused, have a vision, and have persistence, so much can work in your favor.
Yeah.
There's really, I don't know. It's just like, I feel like the spirit of the average person is relatively weak. I don't want to be negative, but I think it's easy to outperform these days if you have that like vision and focus and like the conviction to really follow through on it.
Yeah, man. It's really interesting that there is this like cloud of darkness and pessimism around the future in general, where like why you and I are sitting in this chair, like so many of the people that we've talked to, you live in a day and age where you can literally spin up a product, talk to a manufacturer, create a Shopify landing page, cultivate an audience through social media, like shit posting almost, and you like can build an entire business doing that, like with a digital bank and all these amazing tools that are out there. It's like there have never been more tools available to turn that vision that you have into reality. And that's why it's tough. It's like, I understand the pessimism, but at the same time, I don't understand how you couldn't just be like eternally optimistic about the future, just knowing how much we have available to us at our fingertips.
Yeah, totally. That was kind of my point in saying like thinking about like Churchill, Columbus, Roosevelt. Like, dude, Columbus, like, come on. Like, those guys were probably having to like do the craziest stuff on that boat on the voyage across the Atlantic, and like building the boat, like comparing building that boat to building a website.
Bro, imagine building Noah's Ark. What was it, 75 years or something like that?
Yeah, 75 years.
To build an ark.
Yeah.
To last a flood.
But it's a whole different minds. Like, it's a whole different type of hard and challenge. So yeah, I think there's like so much opportunity out there, and if you can just sharpen your sword to the point where like you can make those things that seem like challenges a lot easier, then you're already there.
Yeah.
Like, you're so far ahead of most people.
Yeah, it's interesting too, like I think we also have this bias depending on when we're born in the things that we've seen and experienced or forecast that we're going to experience, that like nothing like this has ever happened before. And I think back to these insane events that have happened throughout the course of history, and then compare what we're going through now to then, because it's so easy to be like, oh, average empire lasts around 250 years, US is on this year, and be like, oh, it must all be collapsing. And then you just think back to some of the adversity and the evil that these past civilizations triumphed over.
Yeah, I think the collective consciousness is something that is so powerful. Like, we kind of codify these things into existence through just like this acceptance. Like, we'll just be like, yep, societies, historically every 250 years they just collapse, and like that's gonna happen. It's kind of happening right now, and instead of kind of putting up the fight. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I really just think if we fix these like fundamental root cause things, people will wake up from this just like cloud of deception or just confusion that we've been faced under. Like that's why I think that we really do what we do in terms of just spreading this message around health, because I just think that if every person was able to fix their health and reclaim their health, there's just no way that you couldn't be optimistic about the future, or like want to have more skin in the game, or take more action, or be a better parent, or a better friend, or a better business owner. Like, I just think about the GDP that would emerge on the back end of us getting our health together, outside of how the billions of dollars we would save every year that are currently going towards healthcare.
Yeah. Well, I think just being healthy, you realize you don't need a crazy amount of stuff in order to have a good life.
Yeah.
You can focus on things that are actually fruitful and matter.
Yeah.
Relationships, going back to the beginning topic, like relationships and, mentoring people and teaching, and this human experience, I think, is like, it's not
magic,
dude. It's like, and most people aren't enjoying it anymore to the extent of that. I think that we can.
Yeah.
Like, dude, the human experience is insane.
Yeah. What I'm chasing now is the feeling of, and I felt this a lot in the past, and I'm feeling it a lot now too, the feeling of like popping out of bed, a fresh start to a day. It doesn't have to be a weekend. It should be during the week if you're doing things right, where you're just like so grateful. You almost actually want to get on your knees and thank God. And it sounds like hippy dippy woo woo, but that feeling is actually possible, and realizing like you are living and you have this choice every single day to pursue whatever calling is in your life. Like, just the magic around that of like enjoying a beautiful cup of coffee with a good friend, or conversation, or training, or a run, or being able to be part of a great team. Like, that's literally magic, dude. And we just normalize it.
100%, dude. That's what I was saying earlier about living in awe.
Living in awe.
That's why I feel like God's gotten a hold of me, where it's like, the more I am selective with the words that come out of my mouth, the more I'm aware of the thoughts that I'm thinking, the more I cut out the things that are just cancerous to my mind, the more I just see the world as this is amazing. What we're doing on a day-to-day basis, the experiences we're having, you have the capacity to make every single conversation amazing, blessed. Like, I had a conversation the other day with my buddy Shane, and I was actually sitting there just like feeling this feeling of euphoria, and we had never connected on that level before, but the way we were talking about God, we were talking about faith, spirituality, his experience, his childhood, went incredibly deep in the conversation for like 3 hours, and all I could think about was just the richness of this conversation is worth its weight in gold, and it was all just trapped in the present moment.
Yeah.
We weren't looking at our phones, we weren't thinking about other things, it was just straight up good combo. And that's, I think, what a lot of people are missing, is just right here, right now, in this black room with these lights. Like, this is an amazing life that we get to live, and just as much as we can live in the present moment, we can tap into that gold mine of just like the experience that we have here.
Yeah, there's all these basic moments that I think we're all encountered with every single day, and it's really your choice if you want to unlock some magic in that moment, or if you want to just have a crappy attitude around it. It's like, it reminds me of like going into a sales call when I was younger and being like, oh, why do I have to talk to this person? Versus being like, dude, you literally can bring great energy to this conversation. Instead of the pressure you feel selling this person, learn about them, ask really good questions, see if what they need help with is something that your service can offer them. You potentially will make a new connection. Oh, and by the way, you could literally get paid commission for talking to people. Like, you realize how lucky you are to be able to do that? And it sounds really sexy on a podcast and sounds really easy to do. It's a lot harder in practice, but those types of moments you have hundreds of those every single day.
Yeah. They're just so readily available to you if you're looking for them and you're thinking about applying them. And one thing, I feel like this group that we're in on Thursdays now, it's a Bible study group. We're reading through the New Testament chapter by chapter. And part of the group is an application where we take something that we read that stood out to us and we go apply it in the real world. This is the living word of God coming into fruition and actually coming to life in the real world. And the other week, mine was to pray for a random stranger. And in that moment, I was taught that we have access to this, what we're talking about. Just we have access to these moments at any moment in time, as long as we're like seeking them out and like we want to have them. So like going and actually praying over a random stranger to me last week was like a total highlight for me, because I was so close to not actually getting that application in and doing the work that I said I was going to do. But then when I did it, it was just a reminder that we have this well of life of just going and giving and doing and being there for other people, but doing it from the place of like, I'm going to go find like what is true, like these ways to connect with people through our shared faith, and like go connect with people. So yeah, I think that there's so much power in that.
I think what's encouraging about what you're saying too is like, it's really a choice that you have, which I always think is like the most encouraging thing, because it's so easy to hear this and think, good. Yeah, but like my apartment's a piece of shit and I hate my job and whatever. And it's like, dude, if you just like flip that mindset and just try and like magic could literally be having a really crappy apartment with dishes in the sink and just finally like making that decision to clean all your dishes, and you get that like healthy dopamine hit of like finally doing that thing for the first time, or like maybe you decide to go back to the gym for the first time, or like in the office you decide to have one really positive interaction with like a co-founder that you have, or a coworker that you haven't spoken to in a long time, and then it's like that one thing just pops, and then you realize like, hey, how do I now apply this 1,000 times over? Like that's all it takes, dude. Like, it literally be that little mustard seed.
It's like this blank canvas that exists, and you just choose to like put a brushstroke on the page and like make something happen. It's insane. One of the things that I feel like you are just so naturally, you gravitate towards these icons, these people who have just lived insanely monumental and incredible lives. And I feel like it inspires me so much just seeing how you like pull inspiration from these types of people. And one of the things I feel like that the people that you are drawn to do is they live life where it seems like there's almost something magical happening. Yeah. Do you feel that way? Like the way you resonate with those types of people, and maybe you could name a few of the ones that like stand out to you, but like you have this like this draw to these people who have just lived magical lives, and I think it's really cool.
Yeah, well, I think autobiographies are one of the most like underappreciated, like highest ROI investments that you can actually make. In books, I went through this phase like 6 months ago where I think I had a year during COVID where I read like 100+ books, a lot of them around like business and personal development, self-improvement. And I kind of had this epiphany moment of like, what this book is really good, but what is the body of work? Like what's the author's body of work? For whatever reason, that really resonated with me. And then when I started listening to Founders Podcast with David Senra, I'm like, autobiographies intuitively make so much sense. Like, shouldn't I be learning from the men and women that made a dent throughout the course of history? And I can buy that book about this person, you know, Teddy Roosevelt, Alexander the Great, Sam Walton, whoever. And for $20, I can learn the mistakes that they made, the things that they did to make themselves successful, their unconventional practices. I don't know, I just had this epiphany moment. And I think one of the best things you learn is that your challenges and adversity aren't special. They're not unique to you. Like every single person that did something great overcame like insurmountable odds. You know, like James Dyson, that was one of my favorite Founders podcasts ever. took him 10,000 prototypes to create the first sellable Dyson vacuum. The guy remortgaged his house 5 times. He's worth $30 billion now. Like, you see James Dyson at 30 billion. What do you think he was like when he was a father of 2 kids and he had to remortgage his house for the 3rd time? Like, you think he probably felt like a failure? You think he probably felt like shit? You think he probably wanted to throw in the towel? So that's
Did he have an option?
Did he have an option?
Like, you know, you see those stories and you're just like, I can do so much more.
Yes.
And I can handle so much more, not risk. I can handle so much more pain. Our pain tolerance is large as long as we still have that persistence to push through it.
Yeah. So it's like, to your point, if you want to be the unconventional person, or you want to be the dreamer or the black sheep, it's like, well, number one, you should probably learn from those people that did those things better than anyone, because you'll probably pull out some practices to apply in your life. And then the difficult part is step 2, which is actually applying those things, where like you and I could read 50 autobiographies together on 50 different founders, but the application, like it just sucks and it's hard. But it's like reminding yourself in that moment, this suck feeling that I feel is actually like, that's where the greatness is going to come on the other end of that too.
Totally.
And you just have to pay the piper.
Dude, everything circles back to the application. I'm so glad you brought it back to that, just because action it's legitimately the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
Like, it's the only thing that weighs an ounce, like anything. Theory is just like, there's so many just people that I've talked to, and I used to be the same way, and I still am. I fight it every single day. It's like fighting to just take action.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can get just caught up in these mental little traps that we play with ourselves, but the sooner that you can just put that action into motion and just take that initial swing, that's where all the magic happens.
Yeah. It's like the great idea, like let's say the Chad. The Chad sounds great when you're juiced and you just got out of the cold plunge and you showered and you're in your comfy clothes and you're thinking about all the people you're going to impact and how the shape you're going to be in afterwards. And then the reality of the Chad is like, it's day 45. You didn't get to do it in the morning. It's 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 99 degrees in Austin, Texas. You got to put a weight sack on and the 20-inch bench or whatever it is, or the box. And then the feeling of like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. But then it's like recognizing the feeling of, oh, I don't want to do this, so I have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I've been thinking about that idea of action so much recently. So much.
It's been just hitting you in the face.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I think even, it's come up a lot with the faith conversation for me. Just, friends kind of wrestling with the idea of like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm a believer yet. Like, I still have questions. And to me, the ultimate challenge is like, just take some of this stuff in here in this book, and just go do it, and let me know, like, what happens after you start. Instead of just reading the Bible, start doing the Bible and start putting the words into actual action. Yeah, bring it to life, and let me know if there's fruit there. And that's, I think, the ultimate test. I think it's like Romans 12:2. It just talks about, applying it and putting it into action, and then, seeing the will of God for yourself. That's ultimately what the whole, I think, point of following Jesus is like, you see the tangible evidence for yourself of what it means to live a good life.
Yeah. It's like the feeling of, you're in the prayer circle and it's your turn to pray, or someone asks for prayer and your heart closes up or your throat closes up, or you're in maybe it's like a Q&A talk with a speaker that you've admired, and they asked to open up for questions, and you swore that you were going to be the first person, and then no one's hand's going up, and you're like, I should shoot it up, but it feels like your hand's paralyzed. It's like recognizing in those moments that you almost have to liken that feeling to a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. Like when you're going up, you have the same feeling, and then it starts to go back down, and you're just so amazed by that overall experience. It's like recognizing that's kind of like your roller coaster moment too. And no one's going to pull your hand up for you. It's not going to feel good in the moment, but afterwards you're going to be so proud of yourself.
Yeah. What would your life and my life look like right now if every time we had one of those instances where we felt compelled to do something, yet we pulled back because we felt that the confrontation up against that resistance in the wall. What would our lives look like if we actually every single time just went ahead and said, oh, I'm going to stand up and ask the question to the big speaker, or I'm going to go, I'm going to go actually go shake that guy's hand who works for a company that I want to work for, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Predictable misery, maybe even like cowardice too. I think the worst feeling is knowing that you have the tools and the knowledge, but then I think the worst place you could be in is being ambitious and having the tools and the knowledge and then not applying it.
Yeah.
I think that's a really bad spot for people to get into.
Yeah. But how different could your life look? I think about like the upside projectability of like,
oh dude,
like just the image in my head of like myself every time I've been confronted with that, oh, you should do that. Didn't do it. How if I had actually just accepted the challenge, accepted the invitation to go do that thing that I know I could and should do.
Yeah. You'd be back in Boston pushing papers. Honestly. Like if you like how this whole thing started was it wasn't just the Ironman. It was the Ironman, but it was in tandem of you going out on a limb to apply to Justin Maris's chief of staff role for Kettle and Fire at the time.
Dude, I remember my friend Matthew he forwarded me the email, and the email said, if you know a friend who's in ketosis right now, forward this to him or them. I'm hiring a chief of staff. And he forwarded it to me.
Yeah.
Dude, if he hadn't forwarded that to me, who knows? I don't know where I would be.
Yeah, and then you took action and had the balls to actually apply for it too.
But the amount of times in my life where I haven't actually pursued the action, which is it's like gets meta, but it's like the amount of times I haven't pursued that action also kind of, sits with me. It's like, and I think this is the embodiment of being led by faith, knowing when you are being called into something and actually taking action on it is just like, that's where I want to live. I want to live in that moment. I want to live where like I know when I'm being called into something and I just go for it. And, when I think the perfect analogy is like, you're sitting there, someone just gave an amazing keynote address and you're too nervous to ask the question. It's like, no, go ask the question, dude.
Yeah. So the gravitas behind that is so important because had you not done that, because we were going to do, for the listener, we were going to do Ironman Mont Tremblant in Canada, which got canceled. We were looking at doing different races because you wanted to do something closer to Virginia so your family could go. I wanted to do Florida. We probably would have done it separately. So we never would have had that experience. And then look at every ripple that came from us coming to Austin. It's like not just what we're doing, you and me here, and the friendship and the businesses, but like the friends, the church community, your relationship with Christ, like all this beautiful serendipity that's come from that literally wouldn't have happened had you not applied to that role. And think about how many other moments that could be that impactful ripple throughout your day. So that's why it's like, it seems like a small thing, but it's actually could be a really big thing on the other end of you, like choosing to introduce yourself to that person or not.
Absolutely.
Life-changing.
That's, I think, a testament to like doubt being one of the many tools of the devil in terms of suppressing our ability to actually reach and fulfill our true potential as men and as women. He wants you playing scared. He wants you being fearful. He wants you being doubtful. He wants you thinking that there's nothing to be gained from taking that risk or going and applying for the job that you have no right getting an email back for.
Yeah.
Like that's literally how he wants you to think.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear is really a tool to keep yourself.
Have you gotten into any of C.S. Lewis's stuff?
I know.
Screw tape letters or anything like that?
No.
I want to too. I kind of only just loosely know the premise of some of, I think it's Screw Tape Letters. It might be another one of his books, but he basically wrote a book based on like what the devil's right-hand man or like something like that, like what he would want you to think. I think it's like such an interesting premise. I think that's it. If someone's listening and knows the exact.
Noah?
Yeah, Noah Huseman, fact check, please.
Sometimes I think about like laziness or making the wrong decisions as being satanic too, and that's a motivator for me.
100%. 100%. Laziness is, there's like a place for rest. Which is why I think like a lot of these conversations are so important, because intentional rest is godly. Laziness is satanic.
Yeah.
There's a difference, but like, what are they?
Yeah.
You know?
My problem is intentional rest when I don't deserve it.
Why don't you think you deserve it?
Well, it's like if I put in a really good effort or week of work, rest 100%. Like Friday, I didn't work out. I just did a high yoga class. It felt so good and restorative. And I'm like, this needs to be a staple every Friday or at least one day a week. But it's the feeling of like, I have this stuff that I should be doing, but then I didn't apply myself. So I feel like I didn't earn the rest at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just motivating to me where I'm like, sometimes I think like the devil wants me to snooze at 4:30 in the morning. Like the devil doesn't want me to eat these nutrient dense foods. The devil doesn't want me to reach out to a friend that's been on my heart, or the devil doesn't want me to pray in public. He just wants me to like play down to this like weak version of myself, because I'm not hitting against his team if I'm just like playing down to this watered down version of myself.
Totally. Yeah. We really don't know the effect that we're having through like continually making bold choices and taking that action and doing things that are like overcoming these fears and doubts. Like it's all just an example to yourself that you're capable of so much more, but then people are bearing witness to you, taking bold action and being courageous. And that I think is like a gift to people around you. It's like, oh man, I can do that. Sure. Yeah. I can go pray in public. I can go, get up early and get a workout in. Those things are all possible for me. So I think it's such a powerful testament to not forgetting that people are watching, and it's important to, it's not to do that. It's not to get other people's attention, like for external validation or anything like that. But that's a fruit of living your life, overcoming those hard challenges. There's people that will benefit from it.
Yeah, it's a fruit because I don't think that there's probably a better feeling than being on your deathbed about to pass away and being like, I don't think I could have done anything more, man. I juiced the lemon.
Yeah, ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Just
that was all I
had. Up to heaven.
Yeah.
Well, bro, we're coming up on an hour.
Are we?
I feel like the hour flew by. I love the fact that this wasn't planned. I think there were a lot of things that you said that I needed to hear, and I think there were a lot of things that I was saying that I honestly am like reinforcing in myself too.
Bro,
like
so good.
It's a constant process, bro.
Yeah, I think these are just, if no one's listening to this, it's at least just good brother time, and being able to like just lean in and remind each other that one hour out of every week can be enough of a reprogram for us to just continue to hit it hard. Yeah,
and we're recording this at Media Pouch on the east side of town. I just feel like the conversations in here are amazing. If there's any podcasters that are looking for a studio to rent in Austin, this place is spectacular.
Yeah, it's a perfect 8x8 black box that just gets you in the zone. Maybe 10x10.
Make these ugly mugs look less ugly too, which is a tough task.
Feat.
Yeah, but moral of the story is life is crazy. It's beautiful. A lot of interesting things going to happen the next couple months, but it's all your choice and the way you choose to attack life.
Live in awe. Live in amazement.
That's it.
That's it.
All right. See you next time, brother.